This is The Filter on iHeart Podcasts Canada.
We are Jesse and JD, and we are joined by Deryck Whibley from Sum 41. Deryck, first off, been a wild, busy year for you. Lots going on, lots to talk about, but we wanted to start by just asking how you're feeling and how you're doing. I know you guys had to cancel some dates because of a scrap with pneumonia, so we just wanted to start by asking how you're doing.
I'm good. I'm good now. You know, it was like a week of just feeling kind of sick, but, you know, nothing too crazy. Unfortunately, we had to cancel some shows because I had no lung capacity for about 7 or 10 days, but but that was about it.
Now, Deryck, like JD had mentioned, like such a busy year for you and the band and constantly in the rock news. How great was the cherry on top of, the final run of shows coming up and the success of your book to hear that you guys are going to go into the Canadian Music Hall of Fame? What an honor that is.
Oh my God. It was like, when we got the news, it was just such a shock and a surprise, and we were just so excited. But it was the last thing we'd ever, expected or thought about.
It's kind of tripped me out too, hearing your voice, because I just got done reading your book or listening to it as you narrated it. And I thought it was so awesome. And you kind of went for broke in it, man. I love that you tackled absolutely everything in your life and everything that's, happened to you in music and personally that's made you who you are. What are the emotions like, after writing a book like that and having thousands and thousands of people essentially read your diary, and then you just got to sit back and kind of just hear what people have to say about it? What was that process like for you after you put the book out?
The whole thing was strange and good and bad and sort of everything in between. It was hard enough to write some of that stuff. Some of it was fun. There's a lot of great stories in there. It's kind of the whole thing, right? It really is a heaven and hell story. It's all the peaks and valleys. So the thing is, like, I remember so much of it so well, so it wasn't hard to go back and remember things, but it was hard to talk about some of that stuff, and even harder to do the audio myself, to actually say some of that stuff out loud. And then it was another thing to put it out into the world. I think by this point now, it's been a really positive experience and a good process. It's been a good experience to help process everything that I've been through. Good and bad. Where now it just kind of feels like it's easy to talk about, or it doesn't, some of those things don't haunt me the same way they did, because now it's all out. So in a lot of ways, it's been really great.
For those who haven't enjoyed the audiobook version of that, your Tommy Lee impression is incredible, by the way.
Cool, thanks. Well, I guess I've probably spent enough time around him to hopefully maybe just pick something up. But yeah, I haven't heard any of it. It's one of those things, like, I don't know about you guys, but I don't like hearing my voice back. So I never actually listened to any of it. I just did it and walked away. I've never heard it.
So lots of these farewell shows down, some big ones to come, including, your final shows in a lot of major Canadian cities that you've played along the way numerous times. But is it starting to feel a bit more real now, I guess, or are you getting more of a sense of finality? Like, wow, this is the last time I'll play Calgary. This is the last time I'll play Edmonton or Toronto. Like, is it starting to feel a bit more real?
Well, the weird thing for me is, like, I don't ever really look at particular shows or single dates. So I look at this as, for the first time, this is actually hitting me that the Canadian run is going to be the last run. So I look at it as a whole rather than just like certain dates. And everything up until this tour has felt like, well, we've got so many more tours still ahead, so many more legs of the tour to do, so many more shows to do. Whereas now there's only 4 more weeks left, and this is the final run. So it's finally hitting me that it's coming to an end.
Is there a lot of nostalgia that comes with that, a lot of rearview mirror? Because I'm sure that lends itself to some reflection and all that's come before these final shows.
Well, I think that comes down to the individual, and I'm not necessarily a super nostalgic person. I do think of the past fondly, and I remember it well, but I don't spend much time in memory lane. So it's not that yes, everywhere I go, everything I do, every tour that I do, every city that I go to constantly reminds me of some wild story or some bad story or something, or even just something boring, some great restaurant I've been to or whatever it is. I can't go anywhere in the world without having like 10 different stories to tell. So, like, if I'm with my wife, who wasn't there in the early days, I've got so many stories to tell. But I don't really just sit there and think and get too nostalgic about stuff unless it just kind of hits me in the moment.
Is it a little different for you, Deryck? You know, in your book, you described just like the crazy lifestyle you were living with booze and all the extracurriculars that were going around, touring across, the world. And now you're doing it as a sober man. How different is that for you, when you're experiencing new cities for the first time with I guess without a fog in front of you?
The funny thing about drinking for me is that like it didn't really seem to affect my memory too much. Yeah, obviously there are certain parts of the night that get very blurry and hazy, but that's usually like the morning if I'm still up. But I've been sober now almost about 11 years, and I toured for about 10 or 12 years drinking, so it's almost been equal amounts. And I would say I have equal amount of fun, but it's just very different. I prefer it being sober now. You're much more like the things that you enjoy, you actually feel more. Whereas when you were drinking, there are a lot of wild stories and there's a lot of crazy nights, but there were so many nights that we were just drinking for no reason too. Like there's so many boring nights that you just spent drinking a bottle of Jack or whatever, that we all stayed up till 6 a.m. just driving on the bus talking about dumb stuff that is just kind of pointless. But they're just different lifestyles. I don't regret any of those years, but I'm glad I don't do it anymore.
We wanted to ask you about a couple of songs in particular too. We're getting this top 24 of 2024 ready for iHeartRadio Canada. There's 2 Sum 41's amongst the batch, so act surprised when you hear it. But and maybe you can walk us through Landmines and Dopamine respectively, just because they were both such big songs for you in what was a very big year for the band.
And Deryck, if you don't mind, when you are talking about them, if you could just split them up into 2 different versions, because they're both spread out throughout our countdown.
Okay. The song Landmines was one of those weird songs that just kind of came out of nowhere when I wrote it. It was really quick. I wasn't expecting to even write a song. It was just something that kind of was in my head before I even picked up the guitar. It was like it was just already there, and I had to run to go find a guitar just so I could get it out. And when I did, it just came out in minutes, and it was just finished almost immediately. So it was one of those songs that just felt like a gift. And then it became a song that turned into one of our biggest songs we've ever had at radio. And that was just another gift and an unexpected surprise for us. Dopamine was a weird song because when I started writing it, I actually didn't think it was going to be a Sum 41 song. I thought I was writing a song for somebody else, maybe a different artist that it was going to go to. Maybe I'd give it to somebody. But when it was finished, I realized that I really liked the song, and I just thought, I can't give this away. This song's too good. And I already had the song Landmines, and it felt like it fit in with what I was working on already with this sort of pop punk sound that Sum 41 hasn't done in a long time. So it just felt like it had to be a Sum 41 song at that point.
Awesome, Deryck. I just got one more question for you, man. And, I loved your book so much. And I'm not just saying that because you're here. We talked about it on the radio, just how good of a read it was and how quick it was and how great the stories were. And, one thing I got from your book is that you're a musician through and through from, since you're little to the day right now. And, Sum 41's rapping, and you may or may not want to share what's up after this, but do you have plans? Like I could tell from your book that you're not going to stop music. So what do you see for yourself after Sum 41 comes to an end?
I don't think I could ever put music down. It's just like, it's what I do. It's who I am. I can't help but write songs. I write songs all the time. I don't know what I'm going to do post Sum 41. I will always do something within music, whether I'm working with other people or I'm doing my own stuff that's completely different. If I start another project with another musician, I have no idea. But yeah, I'll always do music. I can't help it.
I was bummed in your book to hear that Len went Hollywood after Steal My Sunshine. Got super popular.
Yeah, well, but they, he did come back.
Yeah, I heard that.
It was a moment. Yeah. And he's still a good friend. Mark is still a great guy and a great friend. But yeah, I mean, he would even tell you that there was a moment where, that song just became the biggest song.
So big.
It was so big and just out of nowhere. And, he was living out his dreams. So I get it. And it was good to have him back to earth, though.
Last one for me. Does this feel like an exclamation point? All of this, Heaven and Hell, Landmines, Dopamine, Canadian Music Hall of Fame, like, so often you see eras, I guess, bands don't necessarily end with an exclamation point. Does it feel like one for you?
This feels like the biggest year of Sum 41 that we've ever had. And maybe maybe the best year. I think it's been the most enjoyable year, and it's been full of unexpected surprises, because at this point in our career and at this age, I don't expect anything. We've been through so many ups and downs, and you never know what's going to happen when you're putting out a record, or when you're dealing with the public. You don't know what they're going to like or what they're going to care about, or you just do the best that you can do, and you try your best to make music that you love and that you feel comfortable going out and playing. But are people going to buy tickets? Are people going to like the music? Is radio going to play the songs? That's not up to you. So you have no idea what's going to happen. So everything that has happened on this record has been such a welcome surprise, and it's turned out to be bigger than we could ever imagine. So to go out on this as the final record and the final tour, and it to be the biggest and the best, is beyond, it's like 20 exclamation marks.
Awesome, Deryck. Well, thanks so much for spending some time with us, man. And we really look forward to seeing you, especially here in Calgary in January.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah, we're excited.
Thanks for listening to The Filter, an iHeart Podcasts Canada production. Subscribe to The Filter wherever you get your podcasts.